Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics Evolve, where we discuss all things around comics media culture with your hosts, Andy, Jarian, and Alex.
Welcome to Comics Evolve, myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
We're here today, and we're going to be talking about Loki, Season 2, Episode 3, very, very shortly. But before we get started, Jarian, how are you?
Doing pretty good. You tell I'm in different locations today, so hopefully no issues with the stream, but ready to go.
Yeah, our man in the chair is somewhere different today, remote working. No, good man. Alex, how are you?
Pretty good. I watched Goosebumps this weekend, that remake that they did. Obviously it's not all out, but I think they're up to episode 6, which episode 6 was slappy. So Goosebumps was pretty big from my childhood. I'm not really digging it, but I mean it's definitely interesting. They did something a little bit different with this series than they did with the old ones. Like, all the episodes are connected and everything like that, which is
nice.
A lot different than Goosebumps was originally, and I read the books as a kid and everything, so it's been cool though seeing how they kind of tie to some of the old books into some of the old episodes and kind of pull some aspects in some of these episodes and everything.
So it's not a remake then?
It's not like the original. I'll just say that the original one had some big episodes like the Haunted Mask and stuff, and they like make an episode about that, but it's not how the original was. It's nowhere close, but it's like, it's a haunted mask, so it's like it's got that in common, but the story is not the same. So I feel like with Goosebumps they had to kind of do something a little bit different, try and modernize it a little bit. I think most of those shows were made in the 90s, so like this is kind of aimed, I guess, like towards being more modern, so it's pretty good.
Fair enough. Nice. It's nice to have a different take on those shows from when we was kids, to see if they've got, see if they can still appeal to us now as adults. Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting to see if there's a new kind of generation of youngsters that enjoy this version of the show like you enjoyed the original version of the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's weird, like they brought a Polaroid camera into this show, and it's weird seeing like young kids excited and not really knowing what a Polaroid camera is, and it's like, wow. Like, and they did like an episode like that where they had like an old kind of weird camera that would take pictures and like show people how they would be hurt or be killed.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
And then they have a Polaroid in this show, and it's just like one of those funny things. Like, it starts off in 1993, but we flash forward to 2023 for the story, so there's like a 30-year gap there. You know
what that means, Alex, don't you?
What does that mean?
You're getting old.
Oh yeah, I know. Both of those are important years for me. So, but yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I rewatched Endgame last night. I rewatched Endgame.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what happened is on the telly, Back to the Future was on. It was about maybe a quarter of the way through the third one, and it just got me thinking about time travel. And then I thought of Back to the Future, and I remembered obviously Scott's whole plan, based on Back to the Future, and obviously they mentioned the name in the movie. And I was like, I looked at my watch and I was like, oh, I reckon I can get this in. So I chucked it on, and they don't make them like they used to. Talking about stuff that they used to make, I don't know what they'd have to do for me to be able to repeat that feeling again. There was such a monumental moment within the sort of Marvel and obviously the MCU history. I don't know if it'll be able to repeat that, but we shall see.
I wonder if they'll be able to do that in Secret Wars, when we have all different heroes across different universes. If they'll have something similar to that assemble moment, and I wonder who's going to be the one to say Avengers Assemble, because I don't think it'll be Cap. I think it'll be someone new, maybe Spider-Man, maybe, or maybe even someone like Wolverine, doing it.
Someone, a Logan, doing it, making that call.
I always think back to that moment in the movie theater where Cap picks up Mjolnir and throws it, and just the amount of people that were screaming in my movie theater and freaking out. There were people jumping up and down, and it was just nuts. The amount of excitement in my movie theater. Like, there were no seats available. I think I got some of the last seats. It was packed. Wow. Everybody was excited. And yeah, I mean, like, people were going and watching that movie and still screaming after seeing it 2 or 3 times. They were so excited, you know? Like,
even here, us reserved British people all got a bit excited as well. You know, there was murmurs going on, which is like it's huge over here, you know. But
I can't decide when I saw Endgame and Infinity War we wait there. I'm trying to think, what was the biggest cheer? Was it when Thor showed up in Wakanda, or was it when Cap picked up Mjolnir? I don't know. I gotta think back to see, because they both my theaters got pretty loud at both times. So I wonder which one was the biggest one. Which to gauge people's thoughts on that one.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, maybe we should do a post about that. You know, what was the biggest cheer, or what was the biggest reaction in your cinema? But do you know what? Aside from those moments, aside from those obvious standout moments, because I'm not saying that they're easy to repeat, but what a surprise! You know, before Captain America picks up Mjolnir, everyone cheers. Yeah, but aside from that, just everything else, the dialogue between the characters, the sort of emotion between the characters themselves and the actors, the quality of what they delivered. You know, there's moments, you know, between Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, 2 or 3 moments throughout the film where they have small conversations with each other, you know, and they have little bits of dialogue back and forwards. You know, do you trust me? Yeah, I trust you. You know, you know, when Stark first gets back and he calls him a liar, and you know, he gives him his chess piece, because it's just we're not getting that at the moment. You know, it's just in anything really, not just Marvel movies. It's just we're just not getting that. I don't know. There's just that. Something missing.
And I think for like Tony in that scene, like Tony's broken because he spent like his whole last decade preparing for a Thanos, and then he just gets like the floor mopped with himself, you know, like, and he comes back and he's literally like, Steve, put this on and find a corner and hide, is basically like what he tells him. And then like he like collapses. And I think that's a really big moment for Tony, because it's like, you know, Tony feels like an utter failure at that point, because like he couldn't stop what he's known was coming this whole time, which was a big threat.
I think him losing Peter in his arms too, you know, even exacerbate that fact as well. So
yeah,
that's the first thing he says to Cap when he gets off the ship, that he lost the kid. He lost the kid, you know. And you know, and when you think that's the first thing that he says to Cap since Cap walks away from him in Civil War, that's the first words he's ever said to Cap in years. But yeah, anyway, we could sit here and talk about Endgame and Infinity War all night, which maybe we should, actually. not tonight, but maybe we should. Maybe once Loki finishes, maybe we'll all do a rewatch and we'll just sit here and talk about Infinity War and Endgame for like an hour and a half, But tonight, we have got to be talking about Loki Season 2, Episode 3.
Well, before we get into Episode 3, we got a comment here from the Nostalgic Pod Blast via the chat. So it really bothered me how there are no ashtrays or tables in 1982 McDonald's and Loki Season 2. That's a good point, because, you know, back then they were tokening it up in those restaurants right then and there. It's like you have that haze of smoke in those old McDonald's, and them out to catch that one was interesting. So,
yeah, good catch. And he's got another one there, look.
Yeah, another comment here. So the start of Loki Season 2, Episode 2, the prop guys messed up again in the year 1977. And movie poster 1974 is Herbie writes again his scene instead of Herbie got to Monte Carlo. And that's a great one from 77. That's a great catch.
Nice. That's a good catch. Yeah, great. Yeah, I wouldn't even be looking at things like that. But yeah, nice spot. So Episode 3 started with that fantastic piece of music over the Marvel Studios logo. How good was that? I mean, that set the tone right there, didn't it, for that era and for the World Fair. That was brilliant. I didn't notice what was happening at first, and then after a few seconds, I went, "Oh, wait a minute, that's our music. You know, that's the Marvel music." And then obviously, it was quite jolly, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, I love that they changed that. You know, between that one and also Work by Night, how they changed it with the spooky stuff and even the coloring, if I remember correctly. How they're putting those subtle things in, because you've even seen like with the first Captain Marvel movie after Stan Lee passed away. It was all Stan Lee's cameos in the MCU. So it's pretty cool how they're using that intro to show different things across different projects.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And just as a side note on that, obviously, because we've got all the pictures of all the sort of previous projects in there, and it just goes to show how rich the MCU has become. Yeah, I mean, we can all talk about whether it's the same as what it was, like we just were, but it's so rich in characters, in projects, in history, in its own history now, and it just goes to show in that opening credit scene when you've got the images of all the different characters that have been in there from the movies and the TV shows and all of this stuff. There's so many quick ones. When I watched Endgame yesterday, there was hardly as many as that. It was very sort of like, oh, there's that one. You have time to recognize each character, where now it's like click, 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 click. There's just characters coming in all over the place. So, like I said, it just goes to show how rich the MCU is now. But back on point, and then we get Loki and Mobius at the we get Renslayer, don't we? That's what we get actually at first, with a really great moment of her dropping off the TVA handbook to a young Kang.
Which I love that, because it literally shows them in, what was it, 1868, and it says sacred timeline.
Yep.
So we know that that's on the sacred timeline, and then she gives him the book, and then we fast forward, and we're on a branch timeline now, which I thought was great. And it also makes me question, it's like, how did this version of, or this variant of Kang, are they all originally from that time? Because earlier on in season 1, he mentions that his variants in the 31st century or whatever discovered multiversal travel. So it almost makes me feel like maybe this version of him was maybe put there or something, and this is like a plan A, plan B, like break glass situation. You go and you basically get another one of my variants that I think might be good to go and try and replace me maybe eventually.
Yeah, because it's almost like King the Conqueror, or He Who Remains, since he's not alive anymore. And the other one, we don't know what happened to the Conqueror. Both aren't able to go back and do that moment, so she has to recreate that by making that branch timeline with the TVA handbook. So,
interesting little moment there. Talking about that TVA handbook, and we'll jump back into this in a little while. But when Ravonna, she takes credit for it, doesn't she, later on the boat with Miss Minutes? And there's that kind of, and then so whose plan was that? I mean, we know it wasn't Ravonna's plan. Like we saw that, but was it Miss Minutes' plan? Was it a Kang variant's plan to give that book? Do you know what I mean? Whose plan actually was that Ravonna was fulfilling?
At this point, I wonder if this could have been King the Conqueror's plan, because that one scene where he said, "This is my greatest invention," that looks like that could be from his ship, his power source that we saw in Quantum Media.
Yeah.
It looked like a miniature version of his ship, didn't it?
It did.
Like a model of it. Yep.
Yep. I almost think this is He Who Remains plan. And I think it's because, like, he's looking for a variant to replace him. And that's why he knew that when he died and maybe, like, the multiverse started to spiral out and have all these branches, he knew that the temporal loom might fail. And I think that he would assume that in his death, it would require him to be replaced by somebody for his aura, to kind of fix the machine, or Miss Minutes, and Miss Minutes is gone. So it has to be a Kang variant. So maybe this is one of those things where it's like, break glass, go get our other variant in, use him to fix the temporal loom and get this thing going. Which it's funny because we see him kind of using the temporal loom in the World's Fair, but he's kind of like a scam artist about it, like it seems like a lot of his, the pants and everything, like all of his like technology, it seems like the ideas are good, but he's limited by the technology of his time.
So that there was a direct Howard Stark parallel there, because remember when in Iron Man 2, when Tony's watching the video of the Stark Expo, he's like, "I'm going to my time, Tony. I need you to do this." That same saying, limited by technology over the time, and just there was some oddly parallel between Howard Stark and there's your timeline there, especially when we go to the first Captain America, when he's at the World's Fair in New York, and he's like, "Didn't I say be a few years away?" The whole flying car thing. So definitely a lot of parallels there between Howard Stark and Victor Timely.
And in the MCU, Howard Stark actually saw the Tesseract and what it could do, and that was how he came up with the idea for the arc reactor. And so in this, you've kind of got Timely doing a very similar thing where he gets this book from the TVA, and he's like, hey, I'm going to use this book. I'm going to basically do what Tony Stark did in Iron Man 2, which is look through this book and try and create an alternative power source, which is, using a temporal loom to draw energy from time. It's very cool. I like what they did there.
From the chat here, the Nostalgia Pod Blast again. Love Loki season episode 3. Glad they showed Mobius with currency buying the popcorn at Chicago's World Fair. In episode 2, wonder how he paid for the McDonald's.
yeah. There was no card transaction. No, you couldn't pay on your phone back then. So yeah. Do you know what? Victor Timely seems. First off, actually, before we get into talking about Victor Timely, how good is Majors again? He's just so good. Absolutely love him. And hopefully everything gets cleared up and we can keep him where he needs to be.
Speaking of Majors, though, how wild would it be if Majors ends up being Reed Richards?
Right. So this actually, I was getting onto the exact same thing as you. I mean, I wasn't going to go down that route, but I was going to say this Victor Timely seems good. He seems like a good guy. Yeah, okay, he's a con artist, but he's he's trying to make a living, and he's got genuine. He seems like he's got genuine intentions as such. Like he wants to be an inventor. He wants to help people and help the world, but he can't yet. Like you said, he's kind of out of his time. But he does seem like a nice guy. When he was pleading to Sylvie about his life, he was saying, "You don't know me. Show me. I give me a chance to be better. Give me a chance. I'm not that person." He does seem like a fairly decent guy. So now this was bringing me close to where you just were there, Jarian. I wonder whether he could also be some sort of hero within the MCU at the moment, as well as its main villain. And I mean, we could go down the Reed Richards route because there is some sort of tenuous link between the two of them, isn't there? There's sort of tenuous. Is it his son, or could it be his son, or his great grandfather?
It's descendant, yeah.
So yeah, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked how what they did with Timely was they basically made him like, he's very empathetic, right? Like, so when he's like talking to that one guy and that one guy's like, these pants didn't make me any taller, he literally crouches and he looks up at him. Like, he's like trying to convince him still that like, you're taller. I mean, look at you. Something's happening, like he walks over, he sees that guy sitting at the bar, he slips him some money, so when a bidding war starts, he'll get more money out of this guy. And I thought that was really clever. So it's like he's playing the room, he's playing everybody against each other, and then when he's running from that guy, when the temporal loom like explodes or whatever, we see him run past like what looks like an Egyptian little setup in the World's Fair. And I thought that was cool because we know about Ramatut, little minuscule thing there. But that entire fight between Loki and Sylvie with Timely was very good too, because we have kind of this other situation that happens where it's like almost what happened at the end of season 1, where they're like, we need him, and it's that back and forth of she wants to kill him and he's like, we need him for the TVA. And we see that, this is more of that clash of, is the TVA a good or a bad thing at this point?
Speaking of things also too at the World's Fair, notice as more Mobius and Loki are walking in, they see the Asgardian stuff of Thor and Odin, who's there with them, not Loki, Balder the Brave.
Balder. Yeah. And Loki's like, nobody knows who Balder is. And Mobius is like, yeah, that's Balder the Brave. And it's like, okay. Like, I like that scene. It's very good.
I also liked it when Mobius then turns around to Loki and goes, and it blows my mind sometimes. You're one of them. He kind of forgets that he's a god. Like he just thinks that he's just a normal guy half the time.
And Loki's got to throw a little bit of shade at Thor there, and he's like, Thor's not that tall.
He's not that tall.
He turns around and walks away,
RMCV the chat here. Didn't He Who Remains mention one of his variants having a stutter in like season 1? Thought it was when they were at the Citadel at the end of time. That's a good shout. I might have to go back and check that one.
I feel like that was probably in those set of lines where he's like, some of us would be like, oh, I like your nose. Oh, I like this. I like that, and I feel like that was when he was explaining like when they first met, maybe. So when they would get all the other versions.
Back on the Victor Timely thing too about is he good, is he bad? We don't know yet. He kind of has that same almost purpose right now as or whatever he does to be, to kick things off, as Tony Stark had in Age of Ultron, where he just wanted to make the world better and protect the world, but he made a mistake and things got out of hand. You created Ultron. I wonder if this is how something happens with the variant, especially the Conqueror, with Victor Timely out. He's trying to do something to save the world, save himself, or something goes wrong, like that secret or the secret that Miss Minutes knows about Ravonna. Are they together? Is she his mother? Does something happen? Does she get taken away? Because, remember, and back to the first episode, the recording that we'll listen to says the first thing he says is for us. When it's He Who Remains and Ravonna talking to each other. And we still have not gotten that relationship thing up between Ravonna and Kang like we do in the comics yet. So I wonder where that relationship is, or was the relationship between, instead of Ravonna and He Who Remains, between Miss Minutes and He Who Remains, because of the way that she was talking and that kind of stuff. That was a really odd thing too in that episode.
And this brings me on to Alex's little theory here. Alex, I know you've got a nice little theory about Miss Minutes and Ravonna and Kang and all of that. Do you want to share it with everybody listening?
Yeah, so I was watching that episode, and it just felt a little weird, that whole conversation about her wanting a body, and, like, you could have created this for me, but you didn't. And it felt like one of those things where, like, she's sitting there and she's like, we used to play chess and have conversations together and things like that. So it's like, he built a rapport with it. But we know in the comics, like, Kang always gets basically robbed in some way of being with Ravonna. He loses her in some way and never really gets to be with her. So I have a feeling that maybe, and I feel like this would be kind of cool if they did it, if Kang or a variant of him, He Who Remains or whoever, built Miss Minutes to basically be like a AI copy of Ravonna, and its personality is based on Ravonna. And we saw in that episode that it was trying to take Timely and pull him away from Ravonna. So naturally, like, the only thing better than a copy is the real thing. So I would see maybe it saw Ravonna as a threat, wanted to get Timely away so it could be with Timely. It has that scene right after where it talks about, you should have given me a body,
It puts her head on that mannequin. That was freaky.
Yeah. So it almost like feels to me like she was trying to get rid of Ravonna, strand her, cast her away, and then take Timely and try and run and go do whatever she wants to do with Timely. And I feel like that big secret that she mentions at the end of the episode is that she's going to be like, turns out my entire personality and my AI was built off of you, Ravonna. And I feel like that would be very easily explainable why she shows like jealousy almost of Ravonna in this episode.
Yeah. What else? Sorry, I was going to say, what else could it be? Because Miss Minute says that Ravonna would be angry about it. She says you won't like it. So what else could it be? I mean, maybe we can sort of speculate a little bit. What else could she not like?
I think some kind of relationship, or at first I thought it was like the cognitive relationship, but I'm thinking more of a mother-child and something happened to her, and she doesn't remember having that child. Because what would be more pain, the relationship or a mother forgetting who your child was, and then finding out that she had a child?
Or is he her child?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, is that what you mean? Yeah. Maybe she's Kang's mum.
Yeah, that would be interesting. The other thing too is what if Timely has to see her be killed to move to the next step to be He Who Remains or something like that?
Yeah,
like
that's that moment
that flips him.
What do they call those moments in the MCU? The
something point.
Oh, absolute point.
Yeah,
that's an absolute point. Like, she always dies. That's what. Like you said, that's what makes him flip. Yeah, potentially.
And this is, I was going to give this too. Either way, Miss Minutes is manipulating Ravonna. This is for RMC via the chat. She's definitely trying to get her out of the way. And I also thought that Miss Minutes was trying to manipulate Victor Timely as well, because remember, there's no robots allowed in TVA. Why did that rule start? When did that rule happen? And maybe we find out that maybe Miss Minutes was a robot at one time, because she went psychotic like Ultron, which she has some Ultron vibes in her as well. That they get rid of her body, and she's trying to manipulate him to get that body back. We don't know that either, because he still doesn't know anything yet. He's basically like a newborn child that's learning stuff for the first time in this scenario. So I wonder if maybe she was at one time a robot, there was an issue, and that's why that role is in the TVA now. Which is just manipulating him to get a body back.
Yeah. Speaking of Sylvie, do you know what? Something about Sylvie in this episode, and I don't know whether it's her character or whether it's the actress. I don't know. I really liked Sylvie's character in the first season. I really did too. I think most people did, didn't they? I think most people, found this great new character. And what's the girl's name that plays her? Sophia
DiMartino?
Sophie. Yeah, that's it. I think she was great. Absolutely brilliant. For some reason, she's really aggravated me in this season, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But then Tim brought up a really good point. He said, did you see the moment at the end there where she kind of realised that she was doing what the TVA are doing, and she had this sort of moment of realisation where she let, Timely go. Yeah. And then she didn't actually then kill Ravonna as well. Like she sort of, maybe that was a bit of a turning point for Sylvie as well. To not be, I don't know. She's quite angry, and I don't know. Anyway, go on, Alex. Go on.
I think she's blinded by vengeance, and I think that scene where she kicks Ravonna into the Citadel at the end of time, and you see like he who remains has just been rotting there, dying. Like, I think it's a very kind of like interesting scene because it shows that this entire time, like Sylvie still hasn't really seen any repercussions firsthand for what happened in that room when she killed he who remains. So I think it's one of those things where like for her, she's kind of like still blinded by that vengeance because she hasn't seen the harm that she's caused by removing he who remains from that cycle. But at the same time, I almost feel like this is part of he who remains plan because, like in the first season, he talks about we've done this several times. Like I've got everything scripted out until this point. This is the threshold. So he knew that once that threshold was broken, he had a plan in motion that would fall into place. And so I feel like this is one of those things where it's like we're just watching the plan play out now.
Yeah.
And it's just going to end up with, maybe Timely rising to that new role of he who remains.
RCV, the chat here, she explained she had been so obsessed and can finally see what that does to a person.
Yeah. I think that, like you said, Alex, maybe she hasn't seen any direct repercussions. It's still fairly fresh for Loki, isn't it? Really?
She's seen a little bit though, because the last episode when I'm stopping the other TVA agents from blowing up the timelines, that bomb. So she's seen a little bit of fallout.
But until that point, though, she just kind of thought she was just like free to go live on a branched timeline and just live life and everything would be fine. She had no clue that the multiverse was having branches form and it was putting stress on, the temporal loom and all that kind of stuff. So,
and based on her, purely based on her haircut, the fact that her hair got longer and she got a fringe and, she was, seems to be working at McDonald's quite comfortably, having breaks and knowing all the staff. It seems like she's been there for quite a while. So obviously Loki's gone straight out of that moment from where she kicks him through the portal after she kills He Who Remains, and he's come straight into this. This is days for him. It's days since that last happened. For Sylvie, it could have been months, it could have been years. So, like you said, she's been living a sort of quote unquote ordinary life for X amount of months or X amount of time, and not seeing any repercussions until the end of the last episode and end of episode 2. And Loki's kind of seeing it firsthand, like right now, and he's kind of still in it. He's still living it. Where she thought it was all done and finished. She thought she was sort of living this comfortable little life, working in McDonald's in a little sort of back town, and now she's dragged back into it again. So maybe that is why she's angry, I guess. So maybe she's supposed to be annoying. I don't know. But yeah, hopefully she'll make it. So from my personal perspective, hopefully she'll make a bit of a character turn, and I'll enjoy watching her again. But just a little bit like,
I think she was kind of antagonistic towards the TVA because she felt that in that one scene, and I think it was episode 2, where they see like all those billions of people die on the timeline, like she was kind of like, you told me that we were supposed to be doing the right thing and helping people, and look at all those people who just died. Like, you have failed again, the TVA, and like, Loki, you're a part of this. Like, you failed too. And that's kind of like her attitude at this point. But I think now, like, she's starting to realize that like she may not have a life to go back to if she doesn't sort of help. So she's kind of like backed in a corner almost, you know.
Yeah, sure. What do we think of what do we think might happen now? They've obviously taken Victor back to the TVA. You know, Loki and Mobius have got Victor back in the TVA. Where do we think that's going? You know, Sylvie says about, you know, you're taking him to the place where, you know, we don't want him. You're taking him back to the TVA so he can start the TVA again. You know, I can't wait for the moment where he meets OB.
Yeah,
because that's his hero, basically, isn't it? The guy that wrote this book, and OB wrote this book. I'm along the lines of maybe he's not all good, you know. OB, maybe he is sort of, maybe they're like fast friends from a long time ago. Maybe OB and Kang started the TVA together.
I still think something is there with OB. I don't know how to beat him yet. Whether he is, you know, just happy to be out of the basement and talking to people and helping, or if he has some kind of sinister thing underneath. You know, I still think he could be Mr. Griffon.
Yeah.
You know, even though that's a King variant, maybe in this story he's not a King variant. He's just someone. I think out there talking back and forth about this that helped him build the TVA, like you were saying. So yeah, I want to see what happens when they come through that door and OB and Timely meet. You know, do we have that kind of like moment that almost like a Neo meeting Trinity type of moment in a different way, but similarly to that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping we get, you know, so if OB isn't who we think he is, it would be a real Kaiser Sose moment, wouldn't it?
Yep.
You know, all of a sudden we've loved this sort of cute, funny, you know, little character, somebody who a lot of us, you know, recognize as Data from the Goonies or, you know, from Indiana Jones. And we love this guy, and all of a sudden he turns the cogs, and now he's evil, you know, and he's been manipulating everybody all along.
And didn't he work on the X-Men movies too?
Yes, he did. He did some choreography or something.
Like fight choreography or something. Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of cool, you know. Not to mention, I mean, he does have some Marvel history here, so you know, it's kind of cool to see him kind of in this big role. Because it seems like, you know, I feel like Timely's going to go back into the TVA and meet OB, and he's just going to be floored, you know, like he's already been like, you know, I live by this book and it's got OB's picture in the front. We've already seen how Casey treated him. So I picture Timely will be exactly the same. Like he'll be like, oh my gosh, like, you know, like it's such a pleasure to finally meet you kind of type, you know?
I guess on the chat here, RMC about the whole Sylvie thing and her demeanor. She had a hard time believing what Loki was telling her was going to happen. That's part of why she was dead set on killing Victor. And then his next comment here about our OB, I think OB is good, but was betrayed by Kang, got his mind wiped and relegated to the basement. That's a good thought there. So,
yeah, maybe OB was bad, but then Kang kind of used him and then wiped his mind. So maybe we'll find that out. Yeah, potentially. Any more thoughts on season 2, episode 3 before we move on?
I got a good laugh that they, like, of all the things that they shouted out from that time, they shouted out H.H. Holmes. I thought that was kind of just like a weird, I was not expecting. I mean, it's from that period of time, but it was just like a very interesting little grab I thought they did there. And also, Timely reminded me of Nikola Tesla so much in this episode. Yeah. And, like, I was just, like, blown away because, like, there's an old story about Tesla that he was supposed to do the World's Fair and Edison wouldn't let him use the light bulb. So, like, Tesla literally reinvented the light bulb to have light bulbs to use at the World's Fair. And it was like, I was getting those vibes. And you see him, like, talk about the light bulb and everything like that and put it in the temporal loom and talk about giving energy. And that's just so typical Nikola Tesla. And I really like what they did with that. So, got those vibes.
Excellent. I'd quite like to see a bit of a Nutty Professor type moment at some point with Kang, you know, with Jonathan Majors, where there's sort of 5 or 6 of him, and they're all kind of talking, but in their different ways, you know. So
Hercules.
We got a little bit of that, didn't we? I guess at the end of Quantum Mania when we saw the three variants at the same time, but I'd quite like to see it a little bit more grounded with, you know, Timely, someone like He Who Remains, somebody like, because those ones were very flamboyant type characters, weren't they? We had sort of Roman Tut and Immortus and the Scarlet Centurion. They're all quite flamboyant, where the ones that we've seen so far, they've just looked like normal guys, haven't they? So it'd be great to see them, but all in their different types of ways. Obviously, we've had that Victor Time. He's quite innocent. He's got that little stutter. We've got the Conqueror version. Well, we think it's the Conqueror version from Quantum Mania, who was very assured with what he said. And we've got He Who Remains, who was clearly a bit crazy because he'd seen everything. But it'd be great to see, Majors doing a back and forth like in those three personalities.
I felt like Immortus still to this day is like a Sith Lord. Like, he just feels like a Sith Lord to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, his appearance and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, like, I think Rama-Tut was a really interesting variant as well when we saw that variant, because, he has like the robotic arm and everything like this. And this is supposedly the character that was back in the past in Egypt. So, like, we know that he's all over the timeline. So I feel like Timely could maybe just be another variant that was put in another point in time and has been like an agent that has yet to have been activated, basically, and be like He Who Remains replacement almost. Like, he knew that this variant would be a good version of himself, like how He Who Remains saw himself almost. And yeah, I mean, we know that he knows that other versions of himself fought other versions, and He Who Remains was the one that came out on top. So maybe this was one of the losers, that he saw could be a viable replacement at some point.
Yeah, sure. Couple of comments there before we move on.
Yeah, about your Tesla parallels there. Our receiver the chat. Yes, I thought so too, Alex, that there were parallels. And then about some of the shout outs here. RMC again, even back then taxes were cheaper in Wisconsin.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was quite funny. That was the first time you saw he was actually quite clever. He was sort of quite savvy. Yeah, great. Okay. Are we done with episode 3, or have we got anything else that we want to cover off before we move on?
I'm done with episode 3, but I wonder what episode 4 is going to be. Typically, this is the problem episode for Marvel, so I wonder if they're going to change that up. I also wonder if we're going to see the talked about flashback of He Who Reigns in the Citadel, now that Ravonna and Miss Minutes are back there with him being dead. But are there be some kind of flashback? Like, is Miss Minutes going to tell her the secret or to tell the story? And is that part of the flashback for the next episode? I also wonder, too, we're going to see the next variant show up, whether it's Immortus, Scarlet Centurion, Rama-Tut, another one maybe. So I'm trying to see where that plays into, because there was talk about multiple variants in this season of King. So,
yeah, I also just want to throw out there too, Miss Minutes, right? So I accidentally misspoke and called her Missed Minutes, and then I realized I was like, she kind of is like that though. Like, she is like Missed Minutes. She basically keeps track of everything on the timeline and gives everybody, like, kind of that information. And I feel like we saw a very nefarious side of her in this episode. And I feel like now that maybe He Who Remains is gone, maybe Miss Minutes is the one that whenever a version of him is replaced, she's the one that fixes everything and puts things back together. It's his failsafe ultimately. So not going to call her evil just yet, but I feel like it's kind of leaning that way, that she has some sort of nefarious purpose in this show. And we just haven't really seen it yet. We've seen just a little bit of it, but I feel like it's going to be maybe worse for her. I'm interested to see Timely in the TVA next episode. I'm really curious to see how that is. I mean, everything in the TVA is probably like 1950s kind of style tech, but that's still light years beyond where Timely was back then. So, like, he's going to probably be a little bit amazed, even though it seems like it's older tech to us. But yeah, I'm really curious to see where the next episode goes.
But just look at the jump, though, in technology in his time, though, from when she went back and gave him the book to when we were at that World's Fair at Chicago, how that one grand picture they had when they first showed it, how that was. So it's just, if that doesn't impact him at all, because he was already on that trend of seeing better technology already.
And he says he wants to power a city with that temporal loom, and now he's about to see a whole organization and city that's powered by one.
Did he say the world though at one point?
He did. He said a city and then a world, but now he's going to literally see a city and a world that's powered by the temporal loom, like in the TVA, basically, you know, like a whole functioning society and organization that basically exists outside time, which I think will be really interesting.
RMCV, the chat here, I thought it was your representation of AI. It's going to happen.
It looks like it might. Okay then, superb. Let's move on from episode 3 of Loki season 2. What sort of news stuff we got, Jarian?
Yeah, let's start with Loki news. So producer Kevin Wright on Miss Minutes. At the end of season 1, we know she's kind of duplicitous and she's got a bigger plan going on. But I think it was intriguing to play with what is the plan, why is she doing it. In episode 3, when she speaks to Victor Timely about the past they had, I think it's really kind of moving. It's weird. You get she's an artificial intelligence, but there's some kind of maybe consciousness there that she's had these experiences and she kind of longs for a connection again. And that goes back to your theory, Alex, about Ravonna, and then she modeled after Ravonna. Or maybe he turned her, and maybe he took her consciousness and put it into an AI too, instead of modeling after her. Is her programming written to make that loyalty for him? Or as she says, she was given the free will to write her own programming? Is this a naturally growing kind of emotion that she's having? I think it's just a cool space creatively to sit in. And of course, when she's rejected, she'll go off the rails. That's fun too, because she's very vindictive. So,
and you know, she does have that scene, I believe, where she says, like, we used to play chess together and everything like that. That reminded me of that scene in Secret Invasion between Fury and Maria Hill, where they would share like close secrets when they would play chess and talk. So it almost made me think about that. And I was like, wow, I'm sure he's like probably told her some very personal things and things like that. And Miss Minutes is obviously the only one that's aware that we've seen of some things, you know?
Just going on Secret Invasion, I am quite regularly using "Tell me something I don't know." Honestly, it's brilliant. It's great. I just go up to people, just meet them. Tell me something, just almost like as a greeting. Tell me something I don't know, and then they're like, and then they'll tell me something that I don't know, and it's great because then I learn something new, and I love it. It's such a great. It's like a life's lesson for me. So I've really taken that one forward. Anyway, carry on, Jarian. Sorry.
Yeah, so strike news. So via film updates on Twitter, they say the major studios' refusal to give SAG-AFTRA and the WGA before them the fair deals they deserve has reportedly resulted in a $5 billion loss to California's economy. The loss of 45,000 jobs and a $400 million hit to the fall box office. So
wow, did you say 45 million jobs?
45,000.
I was going to say 45 million jobs. Jesus. There's still a lot, 45,000 jobs. But yeah, wow. That needs to be sorted out, doesn't it? It really does. It's a disaster, really, isn't it? When you look at this.
$5 billion hit to California.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, to their economy. So,
wow. It just goes to show how much they was kind of relying on the film and TV industry, doesn't it?
Yep.
That's a lot of money. Hey, not a lot of time. It hasn't even been 6 months yet, has it really?
Yeah, we're hitting around 6 months. I think total for both strikes, I think around that. So, Matthew Vaughn talked about X-Men Last Stand at, we got a chat here. Year of the strike here in the U.S., all kinds of industries. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So, yeah. You're going to see the financial impact a lot of places from that. But Matthew Vaughn was at New York Comic Con and he talked about X-Men Last Stand. He said he rejected the offer to direct the sequel after discovering a studio executive's plan to deceive Halle Berry into reprising her role as Storm. He said, one of the main reasons I quit X-Men 3, I went into an executive's office and I saw an X3 script. It was a lot fatter. I asked, what is this draft? They were like, don't worry about it. So I grabbed it and opened the first page. And it said, Africa, kids dying from no water, and Storm creates a thunderstorm to save all these children. I thought it was a pretty cool idea. I said, what is this? They said, this is the Halle Berry script because she hasn't signed on yet. This is what she wants to be, or wants it to be, and when she signs on, we'll throw it in the bin. I thought you're going to do that to an Oscar-winning actress who plays Storm, so I quit. And that's why he was on X-Men 3 Last Stand.
In fairness, if that's true, then fair play to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's got to stand by his morals, hasn't he? And I mean, it doesn't surprise me that that's happened. I should imagine that happens a lot more than what we think it does. But you know, fair play. If that has happened and that's what he's done, that's why he did it, then good on him.
Yeah, I understand rewrites and happen and stuff. I understand, you know, things change and evolve, but to go in and try to completely deceive somebody and pull that out from underneath them, it is a very bad way to do things.
Yeah, totally. Like, things get rewritten and things get edited out, and you know, totally that's part of the process. You know, that like what Vinny D said the other week about the Daredevil Born Again stuff. You know, that's part of the process. That stuff happens all the time, and that's fine. But like you said, to be deceitful like that from the off, if that's true, that's not on. I don't think.
Deadpool 3 news. Sean Levy says Deadpool 3's release date of May 3rd, 2024 is in true risk. Certainly, the actor strike and long pause in production have put the release date in true risk. We've shot half the movie. I've edited half the movie. We're dying to get back to work and get this movie out next year. And like I said last week when I said this, I go, this was very ambitious. You know, this was probably not going to happen. And so right now, Deadpool 3 has been removed and delayed from its May 3, 2024 release date. But the report is that Captain America 4, Brave New World, is expected to take its place. So that's pretty much, that's done. So.
Wow. Amazing.
Yep, RMC in the chat expected it. I think we all did.
Yeah, they're not gonna shoot. They're not gonna shoot, edit, and do post on half a movie in 6 or 7 months. It's just and market it as well.
Yep.
Not that they're going to need to market it much if Hugh Jackman and Deadpool are in it, but you know.
He also talked about the possibility of seeing Taylor Swift as Dazzler in Deadpool 3. He said, no comment. You're going to have to wait and see. Some of the rumors out there, though, is that she is in the movie, but she's not Dazzler. So we find to see that Deadpool kills Taylor Swift.
Boss Logic done a really good mock-up of Taylor Swift as Dazzler, and I was like, I was almost convinced until I saw who did it, and then I was like, oh, it now makes sense why it looks so good. But it looked really good, really good.
You know, if they do that Dazzler that he showed, the mock-up he did, if they ever do another Jim remake, they should just make Taylor Swift Jim.
Yeah.
Do it that way. Seriously, that Dazzler picture was like, that's Jim to me.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, I see it.
Spider-Man freshman year, Hugh Dancy will voice Doc Ock. So it sounds like they're getting that voice cast together. Because we've got Aunt May, we've got Harry Osborn, we've got Peter Parker, and now we have Doc Ock. So it sounds like they're getting that voice cast together for that animated show. Still no expectation on when, but they're getting the cast together.
Is the animation going to be like... oh, my bad. I was just going to say, is the animation going to be like What If, or...
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they standardize on What If animation to streamline things, or do a mix of What If and X97. Because I think X97, they changed a little bit, and it's going to use the same What If style as well. We talked about in the past, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar animation style.
I'd really like to see some contrast in animation styles within the animation of the MCU. You know, I really loved the Animatrix. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Just superb. I mean, not every style of animation was for me. I didn't like all of them, but the fact that there were different ones made each story individual, each story interesting, and I think the animation styles lent to the story and lent to the characters that were in that story. And I'd love to see something like that in the MCU.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I've only seen small parts of the Animatrix, but that was all about like laying the foundation for all of the Matrix movies, about how that built up to that. And I seem to remember it was like talking about like how robots became like sentient and then wanted to be recognized as citizens and things like that, and causing a war and all that. And yeah, I mean, it was very cool how they kind of could do that with animation to kind of tell the story before for these movies, that everybody's questioned for so long, like what happened that led up to this, you know?
And it was each story was for want of a better word, progressive animation. So as the story went on, as it got more towards the story that we know from the Matrix, the animation got more lifelike, I guess, more realistic. So it started off as just drawings, you know, black and white drawings, and then it went to something else, and then it went to something else, then it ended up being, you know, the kind of CGI that we saw with the Neo and hundreds of Agents of Smith fights, characters fight scene. But yeah, it was great how it was sort of progressive animation for each story. But anyway, my point being is that I hope that they use some slightly different animation styles. I'd quite like to see that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see when Modern Zombies comes out, if they change it up and make it a little bit more gore type animation than, you know, what we've seen with other projects. So, go ahead.
Wait, puppets.
Yeah,
They should use puppets.
I'm all caught up on Gen V.
Oh, yeah.
No, absolutely not.
yeah, I didn't watch this episode yet, last episode. So,
Oh, have you not? Oh, okay.
no, I plan on watching it soon.
There's a little bit more puppets in it.
You know, I was really surprised when they did the Deep in that one episode with the puppets, and I did not think that they were going to continue doing puppets, but it was incredibly creepy with the Deep and funny at the same time with like the gills that would talk and everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I just think that the whole puppet thing is just it's insane. Absolutely love Gen V. Just I can't get enough of it. I think it's brilliant. I really do. I think it's so good. I love all the characters. I love the storyline. Yeah, brilliant. Love it. Anyway, carry on. Puppets.
Well, no, so this is a good transition. Speaking of Gen V, it has been officially renewed for a second season. Eric Kripke via Twitter, now known as X. I don't know what effing sicko keeps a cat in a bag, but it's out. Gen V season 2 on its way.
Yeah, decent. Yeah, I really like it. I think it's great. And like I said, I really adhered to each of the characters. I think I don't like them all necessarily, but I think I mean, I don't like them as in I don't like some of their personalities. Like I like the characters; they do well in the story. But that's the point, you know. When you don't like a character, that's great. You know, the actor's doing a good job, the writing's doing a good job. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Gen V at the moment. Yeah.
I think the writing is great in that show, and like that last episode, I was going to say I think the writing in Gen V is fantastic, and in that last episode, what you see that they've been working up to, I'm not trying to spoil it, but you're like, whoa, you know, and suddenly it makes sense why he wanted to work with Marie because of her powers and everything like that. So it seems like we've almost got kind of like a rogue little group of people underneath Vought that, you know, is they're doing their own things. I'm really interested to see where that goes for other shows and for the rest of this. And, you know, if they can use that against people like Homelander and things like that, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
so.
Huge reveal, or not reveal necessarily, but a huge kind of direction that looks like they could be going in at the end of this latest episode. So yeah, we won't say too much to not ruin it, but yeah, it's cool.
From the chat here, RMC, what's the puppet movie with Melissa McCarthy? And I think that's like the Deadly Something, or I think it's on Netflix. The one you're talking about, it's like a murder type show. But RFC also goes, it's funny. I think I know what you're talking about. And speaking of puppets, they can do some pretty cool stuff with puppets, because look at when they remade The Dark Crystal on Netflix. That was all puppet work like the original movie was. So you can do some pretty cool things with puppets if they take the time and all that kind of stuff. And that's more practical stuff than the actual, you know, visual effects. So.
What's the movie with David Bowie, Pan's Labyrinth?
No, it's Labyrinth.
Oh, The Labyrinth. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that movie. That's a good movie with puppets, too.
They're actually remaking that movie.
Are they really?
Yeah, I keep seeing chatter about it, but they haven't said who's going to be what. It sounds like Jennifer Connelly's still in. I just wonder who's going to be the David Bowie role. Or does Jennifer Connelly end up becoming a parent, and then she becomes the Goblin King, and I guess her child, and her child has to rescue her? I don't know. So I'm just going to see who does it once that gets more off the ground.
There's also Team America.
Oh yeah.
There's Team America as well. With possibly one of the greatest puppet scenes I've ever seen in my entire life. as a when that first came out, I think I was only sort of 20 or something like that, so still pretty immature. absolutely hilarious. The uncut version of that is even funnier as well, by the way.
That's funny.
The Nataja Pod Blast about the Genevieve stuff. Agreed, fellas. And then RMC that says LOL.
he knows what I'm talking about.
And that's all I got for the news today. It's been kind of a slow news week, so
okay. We've that come very abruptly. That stop. I was like, oh, it's all laughing. So just rewinding and just a little tiny bit back to the sort of Deadpool thing. I'm hoping that we get that next year, but it's looking slim. I think next year. So I think we might be looking 2025 even now.
Yeah, I would say if any chance of 2024, it's probably going to be in the fall,
November, maybe sometime like that. You know,
but it's going to make you wonder too, because if Brave New World was supposed to be in July and after moved up to May, what's going to go on the July time?
Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts. Has that done anything yet?
I don't even think that's got as far as Deadpool, as far as production. I don't think they got that far, so it's interesting to see what can they move up to fill the July spot, because you want that May weekend, because that was like what, the first weekend in May, or was that Memorial Day weekend?
It's the 4th, I think, wasn't it?
Okay, so you have that early weekend of May, and then you have, of course, that July spot you probably want to get to as well. So I wonder if Marvel's going to figure something out to put there, or just abandon one of those.
They haven't got anything to put there. There's nothing recorded to put there, but this is obviously going to push everything else back as well, isn't it? So we're going to be pushed back with all the other big, the big hitters coming up. Fantastic Four, Secret Invasion, Kang Dynasty, they're all going to be pushed back as well, because it seems to me like Deadpool 3 has got a big part to play in this whole multiverse Fox sort of situation. So it looks like that's going to need to come out before other stuff. They can't just kind of go, oh, we'll chuck it later on then. It seems like it's quite important.
What they should do one of those dates is do like a re-release. Like what they did, like since we had the whole Endgame Infinity War Endgame conversation, what if they said, okay, for this weekend or for this time slot, or release slot now, we're going to release a super cut of Infinity War and Endgame together. Mm-hmm. Maybe we have like a brief intermission, but one big super cut of both together. That'd be kind of a cool thing to do in one of those spots. I'd go see it.
What's interesting is at the end of Deadpool 2, when he goes back to kill that person, when they were born. And he's like, this is crazy, he's standing there. That would have been like 1889, so that would have been like 4 years before the World's Fair. So he would have been like back in the 1800s, like messing with time and everything. So I just found that really funny watching this episode, because I was like, like if he's back in that time, he's like messing with stuff all the way back then. So, it ties right into the TVA stuff,
I think we've said quite a few times actually about Deadpool traveling through time. Like what I want to see is loads of sort of scenes from the MCU over the X amount of years, and just Deadpool just doing this, like just sort of popping his head in, just like he's in the background waving or something, just causing chaos, killing somebody. But it would be like you said, that's interesting. Like you say, it's 4 years out from where we've just seen in Loki.
Or what they could do with that super cut of Endgame and Infinity War is put Deadpool commentary in it throughout the film. It's like, okay, how is going to return the stones? That kind of stuff. Or it's like, oh, he's going to die. He's going to die. He's going to die. That'd be easy to do, to put him into Instagram, just a commentary to both those movies and release it like that instead of having a Deadpool film.
It'd be really funny if Deadpool had like a scrapbook or something of all like MCU movie shots, and he's like, well, you think that I haven't been here, but I've been here the whole time. And then he just starts showing like him in the background of Endgame hitting somebody with a sword or something, like little shots like that throughout the movies, or him and Captain America the Winter Soldier like fighting against Bucky. It would just be so funny, like just having little shots like that in there,
Yeah, that would be too bad to do either, because like I said, they're going to CGI him into different moments in the MCU up until now and release that as some kind of film, the Diary of Deadpool.
Or it could just be like him just crudely taping photos of himself in shots. That would be even funnier.
So I was going to say he should be CGI'd really badly into the scene.
That would be funny.
RMC from the chat says, when he said, oh, this is crazy, this is crazy, this is crazy, he's actually given a nod to Chevy Chase in his role in Caddyshack. That's a good shout. Yeah.
Nice spot. Nice spot.
Love that.
All right, then. Okay. It's not often we come in under an hour, but looks like we're not going to come in under an hour by the looks of the timer. But very, very nearly. Jorian, where can they catch us?
If you want to catch us live streaming, you can catch us on our Facebook page, our Facebook groups on Kick, Trovo, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. Just know that on Twitter we can't see the chat, so make your way over to the other ones. Yeah, and that is it. You can also our Instagram and TikTok as well. So
nice. Thank you to the Nostalgic Pod Blast for being a regular listener and coming on and getting involved in the conversation. Thank you to RMC. As always, the RMC is here. We'll have to get you on the show. We'll have to get you on the show live, chatting to us live rather than via text. We'll see you next week. We've got Loki episode 4 to talk about, and I'm sure we'll have some more news and some more fun and games for you. Thanks very much. See you again.
yeah.
See ya.